All right, everybody, welcome to our social today. We have quite a few people. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Great.
Hungry.
Pretty good.
So we really pushed this social for everybody because we have, well, I'll put it this way. The GMs have been doing a lot of work on a lot of different things in trying to get some things updated, updates to rules, to abilities. We want you guys to see the work that we've been putting into it. And so this is a big rollout for us, this meeting. So we have a lot of things to cover. To the other GMs, if you at all want to jump in on any topic, please go ahead. But I have a list of things that we will be talking about. And I'm going to stop periodically through these announcements so that we can stop for questions or things like that. But also feel free to drop your questions in the chat. That way, if you do have a question and I don't have a moment to get to it, or the GMs don't have a moment to answer it right then, you don't forget it. So feel free to drop it in and we'll make sure that we cover as many of them, if not all of them, as we can.
Also, the other thing that we're probably going to discuss, or are we going to discuss, is what our current standing philosophy is on when we're going to reopen and what our rollout is going to be.
That's actually the first thing I have on the list, because I know that's a big question for everybody. But just to give everyone an idea of the things that we're going to be covering today is when can we start up again? We're going to be talking about some rule changes that we've decided on. We had some questions on some rules, so some rule clarifications. A little bit of the world lore changes that we have. Changes and updates to abilities. And some new features that we're bringing to the game. And last but not least is going to be website updates. So we have quite a few things here in this document. We will hopefully get to all of them before the end of the meeting. But like I said, we're going to try to get everything in here. So let's start with when can we start up again? And this is a topic that the GMs and we've been discussing for a couple months now on like, what is that going to look like? And we've come to one major conclusion, and that is we want the vaccine to be readily available to anybody that wants it. And so before we can even consider having events again, we've decided that we are going to wait until phase 2 has been enacted in Missouri, because most of our attendees are from Missouri, so that's the main area we're focused on. For anybody that is curious, there's a multi-step rollout for the vaccines in Missouri, and there are 2 phases. Phase 1 is broken up into 3 tiers. Is there 3 phases? Am I saying that wrong?
There are 3 phases. There's you're right with the tier 1. It's set up into 3 phases, and there's tier 2, and then tier 3 is everybody. That's where Seth and me, and I don't know what everybody else does, but I know Seth mentioned earlier, and my job isn't a necessary job.
Yeah.
So
let me, the page that I'm looking at is the Missouri government page, has it listed in a weird way. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for a moment.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah. So.
The easiest way though to put this is without getting into the rollout is when there is a publicly available vaccine to everyone, that's when we will want to open back up.
Yes.
That's smart.
So as you can
that
see,
would be tier 3 then, not tier 2.
Well, that's what we're looking at right here. So we have phase 1A, phase 1B, phase 1B, phase 1B, and phase 2, according to Missouri government.
You
rollout.
were looking at the phase 1 specifically, if it looks like here on your URL. That's the word I'm looking for. But you see, if you go down, you see phase 2 still has a list of what types of people.
Yeah.
There's a phase 3 after it that is just everybody else.
All right. So that's
I'm not.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as Ryan pointed out, and as we're trying to state, is that we're waiting for there to be a publicly available vaccine in Missouri. So once we get to that point, the GMs will be setting guidelines for starting up in-person events again, or at least full events, as we are calling it. What that means is that we don't have a specific date. And as much as we would love to say, yeah, you know what, we're going to do this on this date, it's going to be our first event, we want nothing more to be able to start back up. But our duty to all of you is to be safe. And so this is what we've decided, is once the vaccine is publicly available, then we will be working on how do we start back up. Does any
for reference also, we do have some reservations on hand, and if things progress at a very rapid rate and the public rollout is sooner than anybody could ever think, we'll be able to open up really soon afterwards. So we are very much on top of the, as soon as it reaches our comfort level, we have plans in place to start games as soon as possible.
Anyone have any questions about that decision?
Makes perfect sense.
I have a question.
Okay, Matt.
Okay, so when the availability comes for everybody and they can get the vaccination and whatever, what have you, is it mandatory to stay in the group to have a vaccination, or just the availability to get the vaccination?
For us to make any further decisions, the only decision we have made is that it has to be publicly available. Beyond that, we have not decided any further.
Okay.
So, and it's a good question, something that is being discussed and trying to figure out what is appropriate, what's not appropriate, what's legal, what's not legal. And so there's a lot of things that go into that kind of discussion. All right. Last call. Any other questions on this topic? All right. For anybody that's curious, April posted a link to the proper diagram. I was on the wrong one. And looks like our friends from 417 HEMA have posted a link as well. So feel free to check out those links. Take a look at it.
Good job, guys.
If you're interested in the vaccine, definitely pay attention to what 417 said. You just sign up for your waiting list.
I'd say Mercy's got it too. That went up this past week.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get like a notification when it's available for you. So it's not like you can't just sign up and then, next week they're going to schedule you in. You'll still be during your phase.
Mhm. Also, other pharmacies are starting to get it. So like CVS and
Mhm. I know Hy-Vee's got testing right now. I haven't seen anything for the
Walgreens,
vaccine yet.
also Walmart and Sam's Club.
I've seen some administration of it in Walmart. So
Mhm. Yep.
it's pretty good out there.
I got mine from Sam's Club. So. All right. So let's move on to game stuff because we've got a lot of it. The first category of things that we're going to talk about is rule changes. And so really it's one major thing that has changed, and that is we've changed a little bit of how armor is codified. And so there were two things that we wanted to adapt. One was we wanted to give a little bit of a boost to cloth armor, because cloth and leather really have similar capabilities in reality. But also, we wanted to give something to players who wanted to have armor that didn't fit into the medieval setting. Our world comes from all different types of worlds, and people fall through. And so we have characters like Nova is in mind for this, and other players that come from other worlds. So we have broken it down into 4 categories. The first category is synthetic armor. This is going to be things like plastic or kydex, or things that people might build some cool looking armor or very fantasy style armor that don't fit into other categories.
Also, I mean, sort of non-traditional materials that don't fit a easy quantifiable thing.
Mm-hmm. Like you might have a character that wants to make bone armor, and they can't really make that out of metal, or if they were, that would be really cumbersome. But for the aesthetic, that's what they want. So it would fall under the synthetic armor category. And that armor gets 1 point. So it is our lowest tier. And part of that is most of those armors are going to be lighter and easier to wear. So there's less stress on the player to be able to wear those. So that's why it's given the 1 point of our global armor. Then our next category is natural armors, which is going to be the cloth and leather armor. So this is what our players would remember, the first 2 tiers, cloth and leather. Both of those are together in this tier, and they get 2 points of armor. Not really anything else is changing about it. We just combine those 2 together. So for global armor points, they get 2 points. The next one up from that, we have called non-rigid metal armor. So this is going to be things like chainmail.
Chainmail, brigandine, that sort of thing.
417 in your chat. I think this would the thing that you just posted would fit under non-rigid metal. So mesh metal would be.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're getting there.
And the non-rigid metal armor gives 3 points for the global armor pool. And then last but not least is the rigid metal, which is going to be like your plate metal armor. And that's going to give 4 points of armor.
Plate mail, coat of plates, brigandines.
That depends on what the brig's made out of.
Well, it basically, if it's large, rigid plates.
Right, but you said brigandine. Brigandine can fall under both natural and rigid metal. Because if you do, you can make a leather brig out of real thick.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Leather bits.
I'm thinking of like historical brigandine, like.
Yeah. Specifically, plate metal is going to fall under this one. If your armor is made out of leather, it's going to fall under the natural armor category. But beyond that, guys, that's really the only changes that we made to armor. It still works the same way. You still have the pool. You can still stack up to 2 types of armor for the points. Everything else works exactly the same. Does anyone have any questions?
Oh, weird one. I can't remember exactly the source for this, but does silk in any way factor in as a type of armor? I had read somewhere that silk was worn under something like chainmail or other forms of armor because although it wouldn't resist being taking impact, if someone was pierced with a arrow or so on, it made retracting the arrow much easier because it wouldn't be pierced by the arrow.
Wasn't that the
Um,
Mongolians?
Have some kind of ability to resist some cutting.
I would argue that a
hmm.
silk gambeson falls pretty handily under the natural category if it was thick
Well,
enough.
Hold on a second.
Okay,
Yeah.
Seth. So I would say that for mechanics purposes, you could use silk for your gambeson if you wanted, but it would still probably have to fall under gambeson natural rules, or it would have to be a certain thickness, just for ease of mechanics. And we can't just say, "Oh, you're wearing silk, then everybody has 1 point of armor," because then if we start getting into it, armor's not as important as maybe it should be.
And replying to Hema, what I had read was essentially the equivalent of a silk shirt under the other armor.
Sure. And what it comes down to ultimately is that we have to gamify this in some way. And so although it was probably used, unless it met the thickness requirements that come into play with the natural armor, like Angela was saying, then we probably wouldn't be able to count it under that category.
Hey, Matt, can you mute yourself? Not you. The Matt in my chat over here. Thanks, Matt.
So for reference, if people are wondering, the thickness requirements for both cloth and leather is 3 millimeters.
Yep. And then there's linothorax, which Hema just posted in there, which is a layered linen that the Greeks used. And it was actually surprisingly effective. But it was a layered linen. They had to treat it with something. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
Blue, basically.
But yeah, so as of right now, the way that it stands is that for it to be considered under the cloth armor, it will have to meet those requirements. And guys, any questions you have like this, like the silk, that's a great question. Feel free to bring that up to us. We will always review it and kind of make a ruling on it. And it's your guys' questions that lead us to making these rule changes. So don't hesitate to send us a message or anything like that. We'll be more than glad to discuss it. And depending on the topic, we may not have an immediate answer. We might need to discuss it a little bit, but that's how these things happen. Cool. Any other questions on armor changes?
I got one real quick one.
Yep.
Warbler. If someone wanted to make armor out of that, would that fall under synthetic?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Did I hear correctly that combinations of multiple types of armor derive the amount of points you have from the 2 heaviest kinds?
that's the way it's been since we made the rules. Yeah.
Yep. So, for example, if somebody is wearing chain and plate, as an example, you would get 3 points from the chain and 4 points from the plate. If you're wearing, say, cloth and plate, so like you have a coat of plates now.
Like April's armor.
You would get 2 points from the cloth, and you would get 4 points from the plate. So a total of 6 points for the global armor. All right, last call. Any final questions on this one?
I just want to know what Matt's eating. Because I'm nosy.
It was grapes.
There's no more grapes.
They're gone.
Next is cheese and carrots with ranch.
I believe they're called pre-raisins.
Pre-raisins.
Fresh raisins.
Rehydrated raisins.
Not the same thing.
All right. So the next section here, guys, we had a few questions about rules that were brought to us that we thought were things that we should go ahead and kind of talk about. So this is rule clarifications. And I'm just going to run through these 3 questions. And then if you guys have questions about them, we can go back and talk about them. The first one is, can a player take multiple abilities with the same name, but different types? So for example, like dodge as a physical dodge and a magical dodge. The answer to that is no. The types are to represent how you gain that ability. And so you can only have one ability with any given name. So if you gain dodge physically, and you wanted to gain dodge as a magical ability, you wouldn't be able to do that. You can only have it once. The next one was a question about continuous damage abilities. Do we have any upgraded abilities that can do continuous damage or damage over time? The example was given as an aura of magic field. So like if anybody came too close to it, they would take damage type of thing. And the answer to this one is unfortunately no. And there's 2 reasons. One is continuous damage would be very hard to track and very hard to keep track of in game. But also 2, it kind of goes against our structure of 1 hit, 1 damage as a general rule for things. And so although we could take the game in that direction, as a design perspective, we're kind of choosing not to go that direction with it, if that makes sense.
You had to finish right after I took a bite. Something else that we mentioned in relation to a continuous damage ability is it's almost, in a way, because you don't have that many hit points. It's almost like an insta-kill. So, I mean, it's not obviously not exactly like it, but it's pretty close, and we don't want to skirt that line.
Mm-hmm.
Someone in the text chat has asked about poison.
Poison in our game is status effect delivery system, also known as ailments. Specifically, there's a poison that reduces, basically locks away abilities. But yes, the concept of poisons would be under ailments, basically, for our game.
Yep.
And instead of doing direct damage, they affect the gameplay and they affect choices that you can make as a player. So, yeah.
And I would add, not only do some of them lock away abilities, some of them affect your movement speed and your fighting ability as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Poison itself locks away abilities, though.
Right.
But
yeah, good question. If anybody wants information on that, when we get to the website portion of it, I can show you where those details are. So, all right, and then the last rule clarification question we had has to do with downgrading range on abilities. So let's say you have an ability that is a point and cast, but you want to use it differently. You want to use it as a touch ability. So what we've decided is that if the ability on its base has a certain level. You cannot go below that. Yeah. So, for example, a deafen. Deafen is a good example of this. Deafen is an area of effect ability. So you cannot lower the range for deafen to be like a touch or to be like a line of sight to only affect certain people. That's the design of the ability. But if you have an ability that you have upgraded, so for example, I'll use one of my abilities. Kalen has upgraded his suggestion from being a touch ability up to a line of sight. So he points in a line and those people are affected by it. If I wanted to still use it as a touch, I can. I don't have to do anything different. I can just walk up to somebody, touch them, and use the ability. But I have the access to be able to use it all the way up to line of sight. Does that make sense, guys? Any questions on it?
Can an ability have like two that you can choose from, like line of sight or area of effect? Or
if you've upgraded it, you can still use it in any of the ranges below that. So the structure for it is going to be self, then touch, then spell ball, where you have to hit them with a physical spell ball, then point and cast, then line of sight, area of effect, and the last one, which is really only a monster ability, is by my voice. If you can hear them say it, you are affected by it.
Right.
But that is only a monster ability.
That leads me to another question. Is that earlier you said you can't take the same ability with a different kind, like dodge. There's a physical dodge, there's a magic dodge. So is it possible to only take like, let's say it's physical dodge for self, but magical dodge with like spell ball or something, so that if you're in a conflict and you do dodge with the spell ball and it hits somebody and that gives them dodge, would that be negotiable? I mean, is that something?
No.
You see what I'm saying?
I
see what you're saying.
Yeah, but you're only going to get the ability once. But like I said, you could have dodge is a weird one to do it with. Suggestion is I like to use it because it works multiple. Suggestion, I can use suggestion in line of sight and then turn around and use suggestion as a touch, and there's no loss because I've upgraded it to that point.
You can't bring anything down below what it starts as. So like Jeff said, what was it? I think fear is a line of sight. We'll start with that. So
Deafen.
fear.
Yeah.
Deafen. Thank you. Brain. So deafen was an area of effect. So that can't go anywhere. It will always be an area of effect. But something that is line of sight that you've upgraded, you can use, you get line of sight and you upgrade it to AoE. You can use either one.
Or heal, which starts as a touch, basically can always go back down to being a touch, no matter where you upgrade it to. So
Yeah.
if you were to have something like the dodge ability, and we approved like a ranged version of that ability, you can downgrade it to any of the lower tiers because it started as such.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Any other questions? It's a good question. Awesome.
Got something squeaky, Jeff.
I got something squeaky.
It's a consistent squeaky, but you're the only one lighting up, so it's got to be you.
Maybe it's my fan. Give me a moment.
It could be your fan. Just don't want it to kill people's eardrums because it's very high pitched.
Your drums are already basically dead anyways.
But someone else's might not be. Or they could be like my spouse who has a sensitive head because of migraines and stuff. That sound would not be good for him right now. So I just try to look out for people.
Hopefully that fixed it. If not, I'm not sure.
Nope, still there. That's okay.
Don't hear anything.
Well, let us move on then. That was all of the rule clarifications that we had on the list. We also, let's move on real briefly. We'll talk about world lore changes. This is something that we've already kind of talked about at socials before, so we won't go into too much detail over it. But just adding it to the list, we have redesigned beast folk in our world, and we want to make sure everybody is aware of this. Before, some of the cultural thoughts and structures around beast folk were not what we wanted them to be. So we've kind of done a wipe of what we had before and changed it up. And so now what you guys are going to find with beast folk is that they blend themselves into the cultures that exist in the world really well. And they do have cultural significance. Their history is actually tied to the origins of Estrel, but that's all I'm going to tell you guys about that. If you guys want to find out more about how Estrel was formed and the beast folks roles involved with that, you'll have to explore that in game. And as you guys explore that, that'll kind of unlock it for our world lore.
For anybody who'd be interested in that type of thing, the main conceit of beast folk is that they are a people with a sort of lost past that they are trying to rediscover.
Mm-hmm.
So if that sounds like an interesting little story thread for you to follow, consider making a beast folk.
Yeah. Or even if you're not a beast folk, you want to use one of your characters that you have, you certainly can explore that. But I will kind of let you know that it might be easier as a beast folk to kind of explore some of those ideologies and find out some of that knowledge. But that's about how far we're going to go on that topic, unless people have questions. Any questions?
I'll probably explore it in character, but it would be interesting for Hanu to explore a lost culture, given that Hanu's nature is lost. So
yeah, we've got
He's
a lot
also
of
a beast
ideas.
folk.
yeah, not from here, but hey.
True.
Doesn't mean you're not a beast folk. But it might be interesting to learn about the beast folk from here.
It's just how much of what he learns will he actually be able to remember?
That's up to you. I can't tell you what good of memory he's got when he's, boozed up.
All right. Last call for questions on beast folk.
You died.
All right. So guys, the next section that we're going to jump into here is the ability changes. And we've got a list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and just read through each of them and kind of let you know the changes.
That was my husband. I'm sorry. He has the most powerful sneezes.
But I'm going to go ahead and read
These are more
through.
powerful, Matt or Chrissy?
Matt's. Even Chrissy will admit that. Mm-hmm.
Someday we'll have a sneeze off.
No, we don't want that. That happens at D&D. It's fine. We don't need it. Nobody will have eardrums at the end.
But So yeah, with the ability changes, guys, I'm going to read through each one of them and kind of notate. Some of these are just minor wording tweaks. Some of them are revamping the ability entirely. But what we'll do is I'm going to go through all of them, and then I'll come back. And if you guys have questions about specific ones, we can talk about those specific ones. So, the first one is on the crafting abilities, alchemy, artificing, and artisan. We added some text to the abilities to kind of clarify its use. And so that text is added to show that you can create tier 4 or 5 recipes with the base ability. And if you want to create anything higher, you will have to upgrade the ability. This is how it's been designed since the beginning. We just didn't really have it labeled. And so hopefully this will help clarify some of the confusion with it. Apply poison. So we had an ability called apply poison. It is now apply alchemy for clarification purposes, because as we've already stated, poison is a specific type of ailment. And so ailment is a type of alchemy. And so that apply alchemy now covers anything that the alchemist can make. And basically that applies that to a item.
If I'm hearing that correctly, I could quite feasibly use apply alchemy to put a healing potion on my weapon and then hit somebody with it to heal somebody.
But they'll
For
also
instance.
but
They'll
they'll also take the damage, so it'll counteract.
So you could, but
Actually, I thought the ruling was that if something delivers a status effect, it replaces the damage of the weapon. So, like if you're using a weapon to use to touch a spell,
give him a tree.
That to use a touch spell on an offensive touch spell, it replaces the damage that the weapon would normally strike with. We might consider putting that down for discussion later for the GMs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Especially since two of us were like, "Hey, yeah, it'll take damage. It just balances it out," and we're both kind of.
No, yeah, sorry. I had that thought. I was like, but I thought we had made that ruling beforehand.
I don't know if we did.
All right. Well, hey,
We'll talk about it.
Topic
We'll
for
talk about it.
clarification.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that.
Put a pin in that for later.
Yep. But essentially, we wanted to open up the apply poison to apply alchemy, so that any kind of alchemy could be applied to an item. So next up is the barrier ability. And a few people have this one. We lowered the casting time from a minute to 30 seconds. And we also lowered the number of uses to 2 uses for the ability. And we specified in the ability that you cannot cast through the barrier walls. So we lowered the casting time, lowered the number of uses, and we specified that you cannot cast through the walls. So just a little bit of clarification on that one. We wanted to make sure that it was meeting our intended design of the ability. So.
Is that a chicken?
I think so.
You have a chicken.
That's not just a chicken. That is Felix, and he
Hi,
is
Felix.
a rooster.
Hi, Felix.
He's the alpha rooster, but he's getting very old, and two of his sons are challenging him for his position. And I've had him for damn near 8 years, and I'm very partial to him. He's my buddy. Normally, you can't just walk up to a rooster and carry them around. But with Felix, we've been around each other long enough that even Remy can play with him. So,
Wow.
yeah, he's a big boy. He's got big spurs in here.
I can see him.
Well,
Even though you're
yeah,
little.
good fighting spurs. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
He's a good boy.
All right,
What's she doing?
we're gonna go ahead and
Yeah.
keep going here. We're only in the B's, so we've got a little bit to go. Next one up is bolster. There was a error on it. It said that you could have a total of 4 points from bolster. Like you could boost up to 4 points for ability armor, but that is not what we intended with it. It's just an error that we never fixed. So we went ahead and changed it. It now says a max of 3 points. That way, if you use bolster to increase somebody's ability to get ability armor, so instead of getting 1, you use bolster, they get 2. But you can go up to a maximum of 3 on that. Next one is calm emotions. We had a lot of discussion on calm emotions, and so we changed calm emotions. Everybody knew calm emotions as being able to counteract certain abilities. Those abilities, we added something in, and we changed something that will include those. But in calm emotions now, what it does is it changes someone's emotional state to neutral. So it's more of a role play ability than it is a mechanic ability. If somebody is being really aggressive, or if somebody is having a panic attack, or if somebody is overly excited and happy and jumping around, you could use calm emotions on them. And for all of those instances, it brings them to a more neutral standpoint. So, like I said, more of a role play ability than it is a mechanical ability. But yes, we'll talk about what it used to do, because that's now covered under something else here in a little bit. Next one is a name change, and that is copy enchantment. We now changed it to copy artifice, so it can copy anything that a artificer can make on their own. You have an artificer item, you can use copy enchantment to, or sorry, copy artifice to make a duplicate of that. It costs a lot, but you can just duplicate that item. It is important to note that that cannot duplicate artifacts. That's why we have it as copy artifice, not copy artifact.
Because artifacts require one from each, at least one from each of the different crafting abilities.
Mhm.
So it's not just an artificing ability, even if you could copy it in the first place. But they are powerful items, and you can't just make another one. Congratulations.
Seth, you have a question?
I remember suggesting when I was combing through abilities looking for typos, inconsistencies, whatever, I remember suggesting either broadening it to copy any crafted item or making equivalent abilities for artisan and alchemy as well.
At this time, we have not made a decision on that. So, but thank you for the suggestions. By all means, and I'll use this to mention it again, guys. If you have recommendations, suggestions, anything like that, feel free to submit them. They're not always going to get accepted because it depends on what our goal and our vision is for the game. So if we choose not to, please don't take that as a personal attack or anything like that. We want you guys to help us create this game into something amazing. Just understand that the GMs are trying to guide it to funnel it into a product. So, but Seth, directly on those suggestions, we have them on a list to talk about, but we haven't gotten to them yet.
I see.
But thank you for those. Next one up, the daze and the stun ability. These two abilities were really similar, and so we ended up getting rid of daze and just taking stun and modifying it a little bit. So we just narrowed it down to 1. what we did is we changed stun's duration to 30 seconds, but you may defend yourself only. So that means that you cannot attack or use abilities while you are stunned. But you may continue to block and defend yourself. This is a decision that we made because so we wanted to give a distinct difference between them, and that's what we went with. Is that you can defend yourself, but you cannot attack or use an ability during that time. Next one up is the disguise self and the transmutation abilities. Both of those were both really similar. And now that we have the upgrade tree for our abilities, transmutation was just an upgraded disguise self. And we also, so we kept disguise self, got rid of transmutation, which I think only affected 1 or 2 players at most. But we also changed disguise self to just the term disguise. Because you can upgrade the range to do a target or an area of effect. I want to disguise the entire party.
Pass without trace.
Yep.
I sense shenanigans in being able to disguise somebody else.
It takes a lot
you could get
of
into some fun
points.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. But if people want to do that, if they want to get their character to that point, by all means, go for it. Like, we want to give these options, but we want you to have to work for them.
I have questions regarding the way abilities might or might not be upgraded as well. Can we come back to that when we are done going through ability changes, please?
Yeah, we can touch on that. Next one up, dodge and steady. So dodge and steady were very similar abilities. Specifically, dodge has not changed. You can still use it to dodge a physical attack. Steady, though, we have changed to be called physical resistance. So instead of only being able to use steady on a couple of different abilities, you now, if you have physical resistance, you can resist one physical ability that's used on you. Which is similar in concept, but opens it up, and physical resistance becomes a better ability because of that. There's a lot more abilities that are under the physical category that can now be resisted with a physical resistance.
But that's been knocked down to only 1 use per day.
Resistances are 2 uses, I think, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
Pretty
said
sure
1,
is-
so I was clarifying.
Pretty sure resistances we all put them all at 2.
Yeah. Steady for 417. Steady used to be a thing that allowed you to resist knockdowns, knockbacks, that type of thing. So yes, unmovable. Now it is covering everything. So sundering and pulling, disarm. Yeah.
Really hard.
Would it negate thunder? Because you're breaking equipment.
It would be like a strength saving throw in D&D to make the reference. So I know you play.
So yes, it would be able to resist a sunder. Sunder's not a crafting ability; it is a physical ability that for the classification of our abilities. So yeah.
Yep. And that could change in the future, but as of right now, that's how we're running with it. Next one up disease resistance and poison resistance. Talking about the resistances, both of these were very similar. So what we did is we went ahead and combined them, and we changed the name to be ailment resistance. So ailment resistance can resist one, a use of ailment resistance can resist one ailment that is applied to you. Be it through a poisoned weapon or a ailment affected weapon, or an ability to cause ailments. Some
Yeah.
monsters, not all.
Much like apply poison, it also didn't cover all of the ailments. So now, I believe we added something of. Let me look. I know we talked about it, and I may be remembering wrong.
Infectious disease is what you're talking about.
Okay, that could be it. Yeah.
Yep,
I'm still gonna double check just for myself because I'd be better looking at something. But
that's fair. But I'll go ahead and talk about it now. And we had an ability called infectious disease, but we changed that to inflict ailment. So it's a specific ability that is called inflict ailment, and it is a monster only ability. So if you run into a monster with that, they're going to call out inflict ailment, and then they're going to name which ailment it is, and it will do the level 1 of that ailment. It's possible that it could be upgraded. We haven't really discussed that, but that's the base ability. Is it'll do a level 1 of that ailment that they call out. Yes, Seth.
A suggestion I would make with these resistances is rather than naming them type resistance, maybe flip that so it's resistance to type. If only because that way when they're all in the rulebook in alphabetical order, all of them are next to each other.
That's how they're labeled in the system.
Okay.
Yeah. At least I think that it is.
No,
I'll have
they're
to
not.
double check.
They're not. At
No,
least
they're
not
Okay.
not in the Airtable that I'm looking at right now. And so that if that's not updated, then maybe they are. But I think there's merits to doing it
Yeah.
both ways. So it's something we'd have to discuss.
Yeah. So, next up, Haggle. Haggle was an ability that we weren't seeing a lot of players utilizing, so we made it a little bit better. So what we did is we increased Haggle from getting just a 5%, I think it was a 5% bonus, to being able to purchase or sell an item at cost rather than at a deficit. So if a merchant has an item and you use Haggle on them, instead of paying the increased price that the merchant would be selling it at, you purchase it at cost. Purchasing.
Which makes it a lot simpler to use as well as better. You're not trying to do math in your head to figure out how much 5% of 2 copper is.
Exactly.
It's just at cost as opposed to what the modified price would be.
Exactly.
Whatever that might happen to be.
And all item cards have the at cost price on them. So you don't have to do any math or anything. It's listed on the card.
So Haggle can only be used on merchants, or can it be used on, let's say, other players who are selling something?
No, you can only use it on NPC merchants. If you're trying to haggle another player, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to role play that. Next one up is heal and heal self. With our upgrade system for abilities, these were basically the same ability. One was just an upgraded version. So what we've done is we've switched. We've got rid of heal self and we just kept it as heal. And so heal is a touch ability, and you can still use it on yourself, but that's the base ability now. So
if you want to have it so that you only heal yourself, then flavor it that way. Only heal yourself.
Yeah.
I think the justification for self-heal when it was released, in terms of just why a player might pick that, is that self-heal was 4 times a day as opposed to 3 times. So you got an additional use out of it, but it was only for you.
But with the upgrades, you can still get more uses out of it. So again, it was just different upgraded versions of the same ability. And that's what we're trying to do, is create base level abilities and allow people to upgrade them.
Yeah.
As
It was
opposed to
also
having additional side grade abilities like that, for instance.
So heal and heal self were basically the same, but also it would be a way to allow a player to have way more heals.
Yep.
So it was a stacking thing too.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, of course not.
Says the metagamer.
I say it says the local power gamer.
Well, and says the person who came up with self-heal to begin with.
That's fair.
And then notice that you could pair it with regular heal as well. So, like, I definitely agree that that was probably a good decision for that reason as well.
Yeah. And again, guys, the main thing is to try to keep these simple and to not create duplicate abilities. And so that's why a lot of these got changed. Let's keep going, though.
A question about heal.
Yeah.
For anyone that had heal self but not heal, will they be losing a use, since heal self had 4 and regular heal had 3?
If they choose to take heal, then yeah. If they choose to take something else in replace of it, then it'll just be.
That begs a similarly interesting question. I doubt there's a lot of them, but so what about regarding characters that previously had both?
They get an open slot to choose to put something else in.
Yep. So basically, if you're affected by this change in abilities, then you'll get the chance to replace that with a different ability. Or so in this case, if you had heal self and you choose to not take heal, you could choose a different ability in place of that.
That's what we did the very last time that we did a crunch like this. Is if you were affected, you could choose. You could choose something similar. We basically opened the slot and allowed you to choose something to fill it in. If there wasn't anything, then you left it empty and it became a regular open slot that you would have to fill with a quest or whatever. But you have the opportunity to change that slot into something else if you want. Not necessarily going to. If it's something that goes away completely, then we're not going to force it into whatever it was before.
Yeah. And there's no perfect way to do this, guys. No matter which way we do it, we're adversely affecting someone. So we tried to went with the path of least resistance to it. So what was the best solution that we could come up with?
Speaking of someone, go ahead.
I was going to say that path is to give you guys a choice. Let you choose what you want.
Speaking of someone who plays a character who definitely only uses heal self, Kieran has no ability to to use it on somebody else. I don't care. It's all in the role playing.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever.
I said, flavor it so that you do only use it on yourself.
Yeah.
No worries.
Exactly. All right, let's keep going here. Next one up is knockout and sleep. So this is another one. These two were both very similar. We ended up tossing out sleep and just going with knockout and making a little bit of adjustment to it. So we removed the helmet protection from knockout, which was a carryover from a previous game that we played, similar ability. And also we changed to a 10-second duration in which you are incapacitated and cannot attack, defend, or use abilities. That is really powerful. So that's why we limited it only to 10 seconds because you can't defend yourself. And we talked about the other ability, stun, which we did allow you to defend yourself. So it has a higher duration, it has a 30-second duration. When used in combat, these have the potential of being very powerful. So that's the limitations on it. It may sound like 10 seconds isn't a long time. Outside of combat, it's not. But inside combat, it's a very long time. Can you imagine having a boss battle where the boss just says area of effect knockout and everybody's out?
Did we also confirm with the replacement benefit for helmets?
Oh, no, I didn't mention that. I forgot to add that to my notes. So because we removed knockout on this ability, we also added an addendum to helmets on armor. And I apologize, guys, I didn't add this in. I forgot about it. If you wear a helmet, you get an additional point of armor, and this is the only thing that can go above. Wait, am I saying this right?
It basically you get an extra point of free armor. It's not subject to any of the other like limitations. So like there's limitations on ability armor, there's limitations on physical armor stacking. This one is just another thing that you can just add on top of everything else.
Yep.
Essentially, if I can interject to see if we're understanding that. If I were to wear both chainmail and some rigid plate armor over that, that would normally be 7. And if I then paired that with a decent helmet, that would put me up to 8, which is normally not allowed, but in this case goes over the maximum.
Yep.
And
Correct.
on top of that, if you wanted to juice yourself with some ability armor, you can have up to 3 points of ability armor, giving yourself a maximum possible total of 11 points of armor.
Yep. So for somebody who is armored to the 9s, they could have 11 points of armor on top of the 3 health points that they have.
Just eat 11 hits before you even have to worry.
Conceivably, 2 players could do this and then battle partner together to get a collective pool of 22 altogether.
Yeah.
Partner's a beefy ability.
Battle partner is a very good ability.
Yep.
It requires you to be with somebody else.
Yep.
Somebody else who doesn't just eat hits all the time and drain your armor pool.
And I'll just leave you guys with the thought of being able to upgrade Battle Partner to a range ability with other players, maybe line of sight or area of effect, and just imagine what that could do.
I don't know if we would allow that.
I don't know.
That might be busted.
That would require a lot of players with armor to be joining together to do this. Sounds kind of like a consortium thing.
If that's not the case, though, I could see it being a useful panic button ability of sorts, of just like, I'm going to stop fighting and just let everybody else use my armor points until we get done with whatever's going on.
Oh, there's also the wonderful world of non-consensual battle partner of, hey, you with the plate mail, you're protecting me now. I'm going to hide behind you.
As long as it's a friendly.
Yep.
You also have to stay within 10 feet of them. So if it's not friendly, or even if it's friendly and they don't want to participate, they
Run away.
walk away.
If they're faster than you. I'd like to see Simon get away from Arya.
Well, it sounds like we're going to have a race sometime.
All right, let's
But
keep
don't
going.
both parties have to have battle partner?
No.
No,
Just one.
just one.
Okay.
I think
Just
I
checking.
think that may have been the case when we originally did it, but it has been updated so that that's not the case. If we did.
I never understood that it ever required both people to have it.
Well,
It
either
may
way,
have been something we talked about at some point, and I'm pretty sure we at least talked about it, whether it was actually official or not. I don't know.
We decided, we fell on the decision that only one person had to have battle partner, and for a strategic purpose, if you have 2 people that have battle partner, then they can be essentially using it back and forth. So there's different ways to use it, but ultimately
Well-
only one person technically has to use it.
By the
Yeah.
time it's over, all your armor is gone. So
That's
there's not
true.
really a point to use it again.
Right.
Let's keep going though, because I don't want to I don't want to run out of time if we can help it, but let's keep going. The next one up is Magic Missile, Magic Blast. Again, these were just upgraded versions of the same ability. So we tossed out Magic Missile and we are left with Magic Blast. Magic Blast is a spell ball ability where you throw it. If it hits, it does 1 point of damage. You can upgrade it to be a point and cast, which is what Magic Missile was. Next one is the resistances. We made a decision with resistances, and this is one of the few times where there is a difference between physical, social, and magical abilities, the different types. Every ability has its base type, and those base types cannot upgrade range. They are only self uses. So like, for example, the new physical resistance ability. It is a physical ability type and it can only be used on self. But we added a magical type to all of the abilities. So there's now a magical version of them, and the magical ones can upgrade range. So you can give somebody else a resistance if you were to upgrade the range of those magical versions. And this is one of, like I said, one of few times where we have made a difference between the types and the abilities. Next one up is Resourceful. Resourceful was an ability where you could take a resource and break it down into 3 of the next level down. So if you took a common resource, you could break it down into 3 abundance. Well, we weren't seeing that used a whole lot, so we upped it to make it a little bit better. Instead of 3, it's now 5. So you get half the number of resources one step down. And the last ability that I have on the list here is Rig. We changed the wording of rig because the way that it worked before was you can rig a piece of equipment to work after it's been broken for another 3 strikes. So like a shield or a sword, it could do 3 more strikes. That's hard to remember and didn't really seem worth it. So we changed that so that it would work for the next hour. I know that doesn't necessarily fit with reality, like how something would work in that regards, but it's simpler because if you're in the middle of a battle and you rig a sword because it's been broken, it's just going to work for the next hour. So it simplifies it for the game so that it's easier to maintain.
You can safely assume at that point that it will get you through whatever the current encounter is.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. It makes it more accessible and understandable and easy to use in the confusion of battle and that sort of thing. It was a quality of life update.
Yep. So guys, those were the ability changes that we've made. Yes, Matt.
Can rig also work on armor?
Let me see how it's worded. I don't remember off the top of my head.
If it just says equipment,
Yeah, if it just says equipment,
fall-
then it's armor falls under that. Yeah.
Intuitively, I would say it would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I don't see why I couldn't make an emergency patch on my armor as well as on a sword or a shield.
Why am I suddenly picturing the A-team? I'm just going to weld these pots and pans to my armor and then go out.
All right, so this is how rig reads now. Rig a shield or weapon to work for the duration, which is 1 hour. But it takes twice as many materials to fix when broken again.
So it does not apply to armor.
Correct.
It does. Wait, doesn't it?
The
It
way
says weapon
Only
or
to the
shield.
shield. Yeah,
Weapon or shield,
weapon
yeah.
or shield.
It's an item that is wielded, basically.
Yeah. All right, cool. Makes sense.
Do we want to set armor as a discussion for that? For the
Oh.
next meeting?
Super necessary since there already is an in-game or an in-battle solution to that. That's ability armor. Oh, I've run out of armor. Cool. Let's go get the guy that can buff me and get some buffs on me. So it's not whereas the rig is the solution to I don't have a weapon anymore.
Yeah.
So
I feel like using rig on armor could. Well, it depends. Maybe. What is the casting time on rig? I assume it's like 10 seconds or something, right?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. So that's not out of the question for a heavily armored character. I would say if it does affect armor, you would have to specify that it only does however many points. Because it means somebody like Rick, with his chain and plate, could step back when he's out of armor points, rig really quickly, except that it's going to cost more to fix it later, and have his full 7 points again otherwise.
See, and that's why I think that we didn't add it to armor, is because how do you deal with the points?
It would be the same way as fixing it, I would think.
It just, you have those points for the next hour and that's it.
I mean,
It just costs twice as much per point to repair it.
mhm.
Z, how do you
so
feel
you-
about that?
I was typing in the chat. What I miss?
But like, so you can only fix 1 point at a time. I don't see why you would be able to rig all of the points at one time. You would only be able to rig one at a time. Yeah.
We'll mark it down to talk about it.
We can put it down, talk about it. It may not be talked about very long, but
Yeah. As of right now, though, guys, the rule as written is just shield or weapon. But we'll discuss whether or not we add armor into that. Okay, so that is all of the ability changes. We have some new features and then website updates that are left. Before we move on to those, any questions that we haven't addressed yet, either in chat or in the meeting?
I've had something. Yeah.
Yeah, I
forgot what it was, but
I had a question that we put a pin in on the topic of upgrading abilities.
Right.
In the past, before we came up with the civil service system, the main way you upgraded abilities was by producing new bits of kit to go with those abilities. As my understanding of it now is that civil service points can be used to upgrade abilities, and kit upgrades can be used to get civil service points, but they don't necessarily have to be correlated.
Correct. So
Right.
let me share a page with everybody.
Was there more to the question before we start trying to explain? Because it seemed like maybe you weren't done.
My
what you were saying.
understanding, just to put an example on it, I have a new character who has Magic Blast, and I'm very much definitely wanting to upgrade that. If you've been paying attention to Facebook, I've been posting bits of blurbs of kit I'm building that aren't related to Magic Blast, but would supposedly provide more civil service points that I could use to upgrade Magic Blast instead if I wanted, as opposed to the abilities that those bits of kit are for.
So as ability upgrades work, you're going to use civil service points for an upgrade. And unrelated to that is kit upgrades, where you can have a kit reviewed by the GMs and they can award you points for that upgrade to the civil service system. What you use those points is up to you. So they do not have to be tied to a specific ability upgrade for the kit that you are supporting.
That is the correlation I wanted cleared up, and that does it nicely. It doesn't matter. The ability upgrade does not care where the points come from, and the kit upgrades do not care what you spend the points they get on.
Correct. So let me just...
I have a question on what Seth's talking about.
Mhm.
So to me, upgrade means you're starting from somewhere and you're making it better. Seth,
Yes.
you're creating a completely new character and you're creating these things for this character.
That is correct.
There's nothing to upgrade because you're starting from scratch.
I would argue that it's a little bit different than that. I am making things beyond the minimum necessary to just show up and play. Like, for instance, I haven't shown it yet, but I'm working on things to make a ritual circle type thing that I will presumably use for ability armor, but it is not necessary to just show up to the game and use the ability armor ability. It is extra.
Let's not. That's not. I don't think that's the question. The civil service points allow you to start with upgrades on a new character. Sorry, Ryan, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think also the part of this conceit is for a quote unquote kit upgrade, we might reconsider the wording of that, the phrasing of that, to no longer list it as an upgrade to a kit, but as a basically just as a kit reward or as a costuming bonus. Because yeah, upgrade implies that there's a base level that you have to work up from. No, I don't think so. It's necessarily it has to be the case. The idea of if you show up to your first game and your costume is freaking on point, we're going to give you some points to go, hey, kick butt costume. Thanks for showing up and bringing the immersion up a notch.
You're a new player and you brought in a full plate armor build for your character. That's probably worth a little bit of points. You invested quite a bit to make your character awesome. So the saying kit upgrade or equipment upgrade or something like that is a little
outdated, but
yeah.
So we'll get there.
I think if we rephrase that as kit bonus, costuming bonus, that might be
yeah. It's just a wording change.
Yep.
But yeah, the civil service points, like you could make a piece for a completely different character and it still doesn't matter what you're using the points on. So.
All right. And Seth, you had asked about just kind of touching on ability upgrades. So I am going to drop this link in the chat. This is to our website. I would heavily encourage anybody who's interested in upgrading abilities to take a look at this page. Oh, there's the chat bubble. Yes, no. Hold on, I have to stop sharing in order to do it.
That's obnoxious.
Weird Zoom thing.
I mean, it's Zoom, so
right.
Zoom's just weird anyway, but.
So there's the link for anybody that wants to look at it. This is the abilities page on our website. There's a lot of great information on it, and I'm going to go down to the upgrading abilities section down here. And it tells you that you spend points from the civil service system to upgrade abilities, and you can upgrade an abilities attribute. So these are the different attributes. We have number of uses, targeting, so self-touch, spellball, line of sight, area of effect, by my voice, and it does note that by my voice is only for NPCs.
That says mostly. That needs to be updated.
Yes, we'll correct that wording.
Imagine, if you will, a by my voice knockout.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we also have casting time as another thing. You can reduce the casting time of certain abilities all the way down to instant. Duration. You can increase the duration of abilities. And then we also just have a listing here for resistances and lore abilities. This is going to change. We haven't talked about what's updating with lore, but that's coming up here next. So just as a quick overview, this is a great resource for anybody who is looking at upgrading an ability. You can see what can be upgraded. And I realized that it also needs to list the way the ability works, because that's also another way you can do it. For example, the heal spell or the heal ability automatically heals 1 point, but you can use an ability upgrade to make it heal 2 or a torso wound. So there are certain abilities that you can upgrade how they work.
And those abilities specify which ones they are and how you upgrade them with the ability description, I assume.
No, and the reason why is because we haven't fully explored all of those yet. So we're taking it by request right now, and when we find those limitations, we'll make sure that as we get there. But yes, as of right now, we don't have that listed yet because we don't know all of the limitations yet.
Still a little bit exploratory and suggestive then, to be a discussion between the players and the GMs, not at a point of having a static, here's what we know works and here's what we know doesn't.
Exactly.
Understandable.
There were a couple of them that involved a bit more discussion than we thought we had the time for the last meeting, so we tabled it to talk about it later too. So.
Yep. Okay, so that is the ability changes. We also have 2 new features that have been added that we want to kind of talk about. And I'm including lore in this list because lore is, we've redesigned lore entirely on how lore works. So the first one we'll talk about though is traps. Something that players have been asking about. We've toyed with the idea of it, and we finally we came up with a structure for traps, how traps will work. And so for traps, there are 2 types of traps. There is the basic trap and the advanced trap. The basic trap has an entanglement effect on it. So it snares a target for 30 seconds. The advanced trap has a maim limb effect on it. And so if you put it on the ground or something like that, it can be a maim limb leg, like right leg, or whatever you specify on it.
Whichever one you stepped in.
Yeah. And then you can apply these traps to 2 different scenarios, and that is a ground plate or a chest. As of right now, those are the only 2 things that can be trapped. And you can put either the basic or the advanced on those 2 things. So if you put a basic on a chest, for 30 seconds, they are just stuck there and cannot move. If you put the advanced, whatever hand they use to open up the chest is now maimed.
Turn your chest into a mimic.
Yeah.
So question.
Real quick, let me one more thing to add to this, and then we can get to it. So this is the traps for artisans. Artisans will have a recipe to be able to create either of these traps. We also wanted to add something in for alchemists and for artificers. And so an alchemist or an artificer can take a already created trap, either the basic or the advanced, and they can use one of their recipes that already exist in the game to change the effect of that trap to whatever recipe they use. So if a alchemist has a recipe for an ailment, they can apply that ailment. So whoever opens it now has that ailment effect, rather than a entanglement or a main limb. Same thing with the artificer. The artificer can use one of their recipes to change the effect of an already created trap to whatever recipe they use.
Something that I've just thought of that I don't know why I didn't think of before when we were actually talking about it. We may want to make some limitations on the basic trap when it comes to the alchemy artificing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know, I could stick a 1-use potion on that basic trap, and
Maybe
it becomes a massive trap.
It also begs the question, is this application in addition to or a replacement of the trap's basic effect?
replacement.
Okay.
So what we might do as just a quick rule we can set right now if we like it, is that artificers and alchemists can only change the effect of the advanced trap.
We could do that.
Rick, Ryan, thoughts?
All right, so wait, repeat that one more time. Sorry.
Only allowing the alchemist and artificing upgrade on the advanced traps to avoid making massive basics.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
basic cannot be changed by the alchemist or artificer.
Seems reasonable.
Oh, do I? I don't know. Nope. But that's okay. I don't want that either.
Rick, any thoughts on it?
It's a social.
I have a thought on it, and I'm not sure about this. If I understand what you're saying correctly, an alchemist, for the sake of the argument, can come across a trap and put one of their potions on it and change the effect of the trap.
Essentially.
Okay, so here's what that opens up, and I feel like this might be game breaking. Say an alchemist has a healing potion and they come across a trap that's going to do damage. Does that allow them to change a spike trap into a healing trap?
They have to use a recipe on it, not just the potion. So they would have to sit there. They would have to sit there and craft over the already set trap.
Okay, that makes it slightly different. It's still kind of
right.
It still sets up a funny situation there, but okay.
But they're using up a use of their crafting to do it too, so that's one less potion they could make. Or
especially as there's a pre-existing ability that I assume would apply to just that being the disable device ability.
Disable device does work in this situation, and so if you were caught in a trap, you can use a use of disable device to then disable it, and you now can take that trap and do something with it if you want, which you could reset it, put it somewhere, or you could, if you're a crafter, you could then modify the trap and then sell it or reset it somewhere else. Yeah, we wanted that ability for those abilities to kind of work with each other, a synergy, if you will.
In response to 417's postings in the thing, we have a functional prototype that we've been experimenting with that Mr. Jeff has made that we are very much looking forward to seeing if that could be implemented. But we will keep those in mind for if we need ideas that if this prototype doesn't work out. But
yeah, no, to that point, and thank you for putting those links. I've actually looked at both of those links in my research for designing this. They get a little expensive depending on which specific ones you look at. So we're looking at something that we can produce and make that's cheaper. And I also just bought a 3D printer, so I might be looking at being able to craft some of the functionality to it through the 3D printer. So, but thank you for those links, because that is exactly where we went to go look at them. But yes, so it sounds like we're going to go ahead and make the quick ruling that for now, basic traps cannot be upgraded and advanced traps can be, which is important because the basic trap, the recipe for it is going to cost about 5 silver to make worth of material, and the advanced trap is going to cost about a gold worth of material to make. So that's important because we wanted there to be a kind of a balance between which ones we see out in the wild more often than others. but yeah,
Question:
yes.
can a locking pocket be considered a chest, or like say a pouch with a lock on your belt, or maybe you have your pack or something? Maybe you're carrying a pack. I don't know. It's just is it just specific to only chests and base plates, or is it
We
could
talked
I
a
put a trap?
Sure. We talked a little bit about this whenever we were designing it. For the time being, pockets will not qualify. It has to be some sort of physical, rigid structure. So, like, I guess if you want to strap a chest to your belt, and
Don't tempt me.
I was just about to say,
Yeah.
don't tempt me. I'll do it.
Z says, "Don't tempt me." But I mean, that's the thing, is that we made a differentiation between pockets and chests, and so that's a good question. But for right now, it only applies to chests. And you know what? We might expand it later. We'll see. Okay, so that is traps. The next thing that I have under new features is going to be the lore ability. So
Just a big one.
It is a big one. Ryan, do you want to talk about why we wanted to change this? Because there's a lot to it.
Okay, so we wanted to give the players the ability to engage with the setting directly and gamify engaging with the setting. And also reward people who chose to engage with the setting and explore different topics that we may or may not have fleshed out completely already. So lores were created to expand this. So formerly we had lores for each and every individual resource. Now that's been consolidated, and we have an expanded list of lores that cover more broad topics. And there's going to be some universal abilities that you can do with each lore that whenever you take it, and then there's going to be some specific abilities that you have with each lore. So do you want me to go over real quick the universal stuff?
Yeah, if you've got it, go for it.
Yep. All right. So one of the things that you can do with a lore ability is you can write a question to the GMs in regards to the specific lore that you have. And you can actually, we should probably start out with what the lores are.
Okay.
But yeah, so real quick, the lores that we've come up with are lore resource, which consolidated everything that was previously yeah. So we have lore monster, lore culture, lore magic, lore tech, and lore planes. Yep.
So just as a recap, there are 6 lore abilities. Each one has a specific thing that it can do on its own. And then there are 2 uses for lore that, as long as you have any of them, you can do this with it.
Yes. One was, as I was trying to say before, research. So if you have a specific question on a monster that you're fighting that is really esoteric and really weird, what are the mating habits of this? Where do these naturally come from in the world? What type of things do X creatures eat? Okay, the GMs may not have thought about that particular question and thought of an answer to that. So you can write that on a piece of paper, submit that to us, and we will discuss this as at our leisure and come back to you with an answer. And this will symbolize in-game research that your character gets a hold of basically on their downtime.
So we will respond to these questions as soon as we are able to, but depending on the complexity of your question, you may not get it in the same game. Like, any downtime that we have, we'll check and see if anybody submitted any questions. And if it's a simple thing, we'll answer it and then get it back to you. But
Yep.
if it's super complicated, like the mating rituals of the kobolds in specifically the Duchy Desjardins, or Duchy Jernigan now, we will have to get back to you on that because we probably don't have an answer.
Just present shinies like birds.
Yep. Or,
And who you want some blue?
or if you use lore culture to go, what are the trade routes between this duchy and the Bahir, the Bahiri? You go, and we might get that back to you.
So that's one thing you can use lore for, is submitting a question, and that represents in-game research. The second thing that you can do with it is you can interact with specific cards that will be in the game. So, for example, you might have something that says lore monster on it. And when you take down a big bad and you pick up this lore monster card, you don't get it unless you have the lore monster ability.
Hmm.
So there's going to be some things that are going to be more locked in, and players will have to have certain types of abilities to be able to interact with them. Or you might have an artifact that is found that has lore magic with it, and you can't interact with that artifact unless you have the lore magic ability. So this is something that we're adding to the game. These cards will exist in the world, and they're going to have different benefits. Like on the monster, the lore monster might give you additional resources from that monster, or it might give you some sort of bonus or an item or something that you find by searching that monster, and you know this information because you're more in tune with monsters of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Seth, you have a question?
I have two questions, actually. The first one being that we keep using the word ability in this context. Am I correct in assuming, therefore, that you take it the same way as you would any other ability?
Yes.
Yes.
Which seems to further imply that it could be upgraded like other abilities.
Yes.
Typically for additional uses.
Yeah.
That's the primary way for this lore, because I do believe the requirement is if you submit one of those questions, that's a use.
Mhm.
Potentially, you may or may not. Those cards may require you to use a use for them to interact with that card. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes it'll just be a little bit of extra information that you get, like, hey, cool. And then the specific abilities that correspond with each of the individual lores will also require a use for you to engage with them.
Okay. My second question then is, when getting information from this, how much room for interpretation is there? Taking lore magic into example, the way I perform magic is going to be very different from the way Angela performs magic, which will be very different from the way Rick does magic.
So
in terms of just like how we go about role playing it.
So how you role play it is up to you. Like for myself, Kaylin, I'm going to be doing a lot more research if I use one of my lore. It's going to be looking through books and things like that. How you get the information, that's up to you to role play, however your character would do that. But the answer is going to be directly tied to which lore you use. So the same question, where do I find the Naga? There's a Naga loose. Where is it from in our world? Well, if you use lore resource, yeah, Claire is the Naga. If you use lore resource, you're going to get a very different answer than if you use lore monster. That's
great, but that's not quite the question I'm asking.
I think I know what you're asking. Sorry, could you restate your question? I had the answer to it, and then I lost both the question and the answer.
To put a somewhat more concrete example on it, There is an anecdote from the LARP craft owners that frequently gets told where we did this big ritual to kill an ancient vampire by basically creating a miniature sun. If I, with lore magic, ask a question to the effect of, what does it take to undo this plot-related thing? How much room do I have to interpret how my character will actually go about making that happen?
That'll depend on the response that you get, basically.
Yep.
So all these lores correspond to elements of the setting that you are in. So lore magic has to do with the magic of Estrel. So if you were to ask, I need to, what would be the appropriate, ritual magic to do whatever task, you will get the specific requirements in the response from the research that you gather, and everything out of how you flavor, you set up those like rituals or anything like that. That's up to you. Or if we have a plot specific thing in mind, we might just hand you a big sheet of paper that's like, here's the ritual that you need to perform. It's all completely dependent on basically, did we have this planned ahead of time, that we expected somebody to use this lore? Are you asking something that we're kind of having to do on the fly and create a new thing for? So it's going to be varying amounts of room depending on the situation.
Okay, that
Lots
answers
of
my question.
dependencies.
Yeah.
That answers my question fairly well.
Good. It puts a little bit of extra work on us as GMs, but the payoff is that you guys get in-game knowledge and you get to represent that in a certain way. And so we feel it's a good trade-off. So those two things, the in-game question and the working with the ability cards, are going to be the two universal uses of lore. If you have any lore ability, you can do those two things in addition to a specific. Is that a Matt?
No, that was actually Chrissy.
Oh.
Hi, Chrissy.
You're just like surrounded.
Mm-hmm.
So those two things are the universal uses of lore. Now, you guys will know any kind of lore object in the game because it's going to have a fluorescent blue color associated with it. We've used colors for other specific things. We've decided on using fluorescent blue for anything that is a lore ability. So if you see that, look and see what the lore on it is. And if it's a lore you have, you can use it, or you can access it or read it. If it is not a lore you have, you do not get to participate with it. So you need somebody with that lore to be able to interact with it.
That begs a bit of an interesting question. Does that mean that I have room to put such lore things on my own stuff with the expectation that other people might investigate it to see what's going on with it?
Probably not. I think because as we said, this is all returning to the setting.
That's fair. Yeah, that doesn't make as much sense.
Yeah, it'll be provided by the setting. Now, you can easily carry around a bunch of artifacts that you found, and they require lore magic or lore tech to interact with, and they'll still have those requirements even as you carry them around.
Yep.
But yeah.
So this meeting has been running quite a while, so I want to try to keep going with stuff. So let's talk about the specific things that each lore does. So the first one is lore resource. It creates one spawn point at a time for 30 abundant material of your choice. So you get to choose which material type it is. Chemical or plant, animal, any of them except magic and tech. Magic and tech are specifically not basic resources. They are more advanced, and so you cannot create a resource spawn for those two abundance. You may place a new spawn point after the previous has been exhausted. So once you create one, if you have more uses of it, you can create another one, but the first one has to be exhausted before you can create a second one. The next lore ability is Lore Monster. And Lore Monster, player may ask a staff or GM to identify a creature. So that's the specific use of the Lore Monster beyond the cards and the question. We feel like that one is going to interact with the cards more than a lot of the other abilities, so that's why that one is pretty simple. But you can identify a creature based on it. Next up, we'll talk about Lore Magic and Lore Tech together because they both have the same effect. They're just specific to either magic or tech. So, and that is, you can take two materials of the same quality, two resources of the same quality, and make a magic resource under the magic lore, or make a tech resource under the tech lore. And so if you have two common resources, they could be any type. So let's say an animal and a ore, and you want to make a magic resource, you can take those two commons and make it into one magic common resource. So this is how we're going to be adding in these resources into the game, is that you guys will have to combine already existing resources to make the magic or the tech. And then the next lore is Lore Culture. Lore Culture is interesting because when you take it, you choose one language to know permanently of these five, and that is Bahir, Ankarim, Vertigron, Fey, and Imperium. Those are the five languages in our world beyond common. And so when you take that lore, you get to pick one of those five, and that is Bahir, Vertigron, Ankarim, Fey, and Imperium. Those are the five. And each of those relate to a specific culture that is heavily present in our world.
That
Go ahead,
middle
sorry.
one is kind of a weird word, and I'm not even sure what word it's supposed to be. I'm sorry.
Ankiram, and it is the elves, basically.
Like,
whatever. What
Can you
elves were.
type it out in chat, please?
I
got it.
say not easily on my computer.
Because
Not this one.
That word makes no sense to my ears. I need to actually look at it.
There is an accent over the U, but I can't type that.
Ankiram.
Yep.
Now I get it. Thank you.
It's an umlaut over the U.
It's actually an accent.
Oh, okay.
Grav? Yeah, because it used this way. Accent grav.
Thank you for taking my brief interruption. Please continue.
No problem. I'll be honest, guys. I mispronounce this word all the time. So please don't listen to my pronunciation of it. Listen to Ryan's or Angela's. They're much better at it than I am.
It's Irish.
Yeah,
it's an Irish word. It's actually two Irish words, but yeah.
That's fine.
And just as a quick note, each of these cultures are heavily influenced by certain real world cultures. So you'll find those words that are used in those cultures that are represented in our in-game cultures as well. Okay, and then the last one that we have is, yes, and the last one we have is Lore Planes. Lore Planes, you can identify what plane something or someone comes from. You may also use this ability to make others unable to tell which plane you come from or have been to. So that's the the specific use for lore planes. The idea behind it is if you've traveled to other planes or you came from another plane or something like that, you're going to be more apt to being able to identify items or people from other planes. So, but like I said, each one of the 6 have their own specific use that can only be used with that one ability, but then they also have the 2 uses that any lore ability can use. And hopefully, if we design these right, all kinds of players are going to want them. Like the lore monster, we see, I assume Tanis is going to want lore monster because more stuff out of monsters, why not?
I think it's worth noting as well that like for the cards, we'll specifically say which lore they're for.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a lore monster card, it will say lore monster, and that's the only lore that you could use with that.
And they'll probably be like folded in half, and then you open it up if you have that lore and read the thing.
Yeah. Yep.
And if you don't have that lore, you leave it alone.
Or depending on like if it's attached to an item, you can take that item to somebody who might know about it.
Yep. Or if it's a monster, you go, hey, does anybody know anything about monsters? Anybody get poke us and stick?
poke. So, yeah. So, guys, that is all of the stuff around the game that's been updated. The last thing I have on the list is the website updates. A couple of quick things, so I'm just going to hit them real quick, and then we'll open up the floor to whatever topics, questions people have, and go into that. Let me share my screen real quick.
Ew, I don't want to look at your screen again.
I do what I want.
Insubordinate.
We're going to talk about creating an account, show you guys the account overview stuff, and then also show you guys the new shop that we have. So those are the big 3 things. Sharing screen now. All right, everybody see that?
Nope, I'm blind. Oh.
All right. So up here on the menu, and you guys will notice it'll look a little bit different on your phone. I'm still optimizing some of that stuff. If you guys notice anything, I know Angela has told me a few things, and anybody that's using the website, if you notice anything that looks weird or doesn't look right, please send us a message on Facebook and we will get it corrected. This has been a huge project undertaking, and some things get missed, and I apologize about those.
Also be sure to include what device you're using it on.
Yes, that would help. So come onto the site and hit login. If you have not created an account yet, let me show you guys what the login page looks like. So here is the login page. Go ahead and you can register if you have not created an account, or if you don't remember your password, you can hit lost your password right here. But go ahead, log in. My access looks a little bit different than your guys's, but it should take you to an account page, which will look like this. And if it doesn't automatically take you to the account page, you can go to it from the menu, My Account. And on here on the account page, we have a few different sections. We have the Meadowmere Shop section. We'll come back and talk about this in just a moment. But we also have game information. And so you have player information, character information, abilities, create a character, printable character sheet, and just some rough information that you have registered. If you have not created an account yet, I will need to link your account with this information. So create an account and I'll link it up for you. But once it's linked, you'll be able to see things like, do I have a current balance with Meadowmere? Do I have any CS points? What events have I been to? What did I pay for those events? What characters did I bring to the events? Things like that. are all going to be things that you'll be able to see from this screen. We also have the player information page. So if you click on it, it brings you to an interactable section here. And it has my details. I'm not going to hit edit, but you click on the little edit link here to be able to go in and update some of your information, like name, address, phone number, any contact information, stuff like that. Things that are specific to you as a player, you'll be able to update here. I'm going to go back to my account real quick. And I want to show you guys the character information screen. In the same regards, you have a character information screen that as of right now, you cannot modify, but things like your background or your history, you how much of what materials, coins, other items, your occupation, mortality rating, your abilities. It tells you all of this in a nice, clean kind of format that doesn't work for printing out. So I made a special page for being able to print out your own character sheet if you want to, which is the next link down. And what you do is you just choose which character. If you have multiple, you'll be able to select between them. You select the character you want, hit load character sheet, and it loads a nice clean page so you can see all of your abilities, everything. And when you go to print, it gives you a clean single sheet page to be able to print out your ability or your character screen. So you can come to an event with your character sheet ready. You don't have to wait on us to be able to like track it down or anything like that. You can bring it yourself. So that's some of the stuff here with the My Account functionality, just to give you guys a little bit of an overview. But the other thing I wanted to show you guys is our brand new shop that we've opened. We had a shop through a site that we were working with, but we've transitioned to something new. This is a shop that's built into our website. So you can see all of our branded products right here on the site, good to go. And we have some in-game merch available as well. So some things that are fantastic, like I'm gonna be honest, I'm probably gonna buy this duffel bag because it's nice. But we have a whole lot of products. We have face masks if you want to advertise for Meadowmere. Let everybody know that you like Meadowmere LARP. But some of these in-game items are things like journals, and this one is for Desjardins, or a wall tapestry. So if you want a sign for your house that you work with, this one specifically is Desjardins, you could order a tapestry that is the flag of your house. We'll click on it real quick and so you guys can see some of the details on it. And so here it is. This tapestry is just about $17. And you can see here that there are a few multiple sizes. I think this one only comes in 26 by 36. I'm noticing there's it only comes in 26 by 36. There are a couple of graphical things that I'm working on. I'm noticing one right here. This text is not showing up very well. So I will fix that. But if you guys notice things as well, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to go in and fix them. And right now, all of our purchases are done through our PayPal account, but you can use cards or debit accounts or debit card or credit card to make that purchase as well. But yeah, so go in, take a look. We have a ton of different items that are here. Here are some of the house branded items. So like House Royce is our local nobles, and here's their flag. So if you want a copy of the Royce flag, there you go.
Cool.
We also have things for the order. So if you're a part of the order, and those are up there as well. And we'll be adding more things as we kind of add them in. Any questions over anything on the website, guys? T-shirts, hoodies?
I just want to say that that's all pretty awesome. You know, just putting that out there.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah, love
well done.
So as tax return money comes back, feel free to support your local LARP. Sorry, I had
Nice
to do the
plug.
shameless plug.
Totally good.
But yeah, guys, the website, we're adding things, adjusting things, trying to make it as good as we can. I'm gonna stop sharing now, but that I think is everything that we had as GMs. Angela, Ryan, Rick, any additional things that we haven't touched on? I think I got everything.
Nothing LARP related. I'm gonna harass everybody when we stop recording, but
Yeah. So let's open it up to you guys. You have listened to me and us talk for, geez, a little over 2 hours. What are you guys doing with your lives? What about you guys? Tell us, do you have questions? Do you have things you want to talk about, ask about? The floor is open.
I just miss you guys.
I miss you too,
I
Matt.
miss hitting people and talking and just being out around you guys, you know?
I'll occasionally get messages from them that are just like a fist or a phone weapon. You know, it's weird. I think it's compensation.
it is Matt.
Going into a dark place there, Matt.
I just start sending messages that's come at me, bro.
Just find gifts. Just find the gifts. That owl.
Tanis uses taunt. Matt, you can't do that over chat.
You say Tanis uses taunt. Hanu uses mute.
Seth, you have a question.
While you were showing off the website, I was following along on my own screen, and I would like to observe that I am not able to see all the same information that you are. And I don't know if that's just a mistake with my account in particular, or if there's a flaw that uncovers, but it's pretty important, I think.
Which information?
Yeah, because it could be an admin thing too.
Yeah.
Could I go ahead and share my screen?
Sure.
Okay. Should be as simple as that.
Ooh.
Because OBS is letting me do some fun things. But
like infinite Seth.
Sorry. But here is the player page. And
okay. So yeah, in this instance, I have not linked your player information to your login account yet, so I will get that taken care of.
Okay, that's just me in particular, you suspect?
Well, what it is as you guys create a new account onto the website, I have to tell your information what your login is to be able to show you only your information.
I see.
And so I have to manually link that for all of our existing players. For new players, they're going to be able to update that on the site all on their own. But because it's a transition, that's what you guys will run into. So if anybody runs into that same thing where it's not telling you information in those charts, just send us a message on Facebook or email or whatever, and we will get that updated for you.
Okay. Because like I'm in software development. I know that sometimes these things can be hard to spot or diagnose. And so just trying to get to the root of what that problem might be.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And that's what it is. It's just that I have to manually link the accounts. And if I miss it, let me know, remind me, and I can get it fixed.
Okay.
That is until I get the other GMs, teach them how to do it, then they can do it too. As Angela hides.
I already got a ton of stuff to do.
So Claire's question in the chat, does venom fit in with poison? Are you referring to a specific ability that was like a background ability, or
So to Claire's question, I remember talking to her about it. She was looking at what kind of ability she could use for her Naga character to represent like the venom that the Naga would have. And so kind of what it is you just have to figure out which effect you want for that. And then you can pick an ability that fits that effect. So like if you want them to be stunned for 30 seconds, then you'd use the stun effect or the stun ability. And it just kind of depends what effect you want that to have, if that makes sense.
I would foresee a decent analog to that would be knockout.
Yeah.
A knockout venom would be highly effective as a predator.
And so it's just think about what you want it to do, like Jeff said.
Yeah. Typically, though, the ailments are going to be kind of off limits to anything, though, that except for monsters, because they have some pretty stout effects that can last permanently if not treated. So yeah, the actual like poisoned condition, quote unquote, or anything like that, probably not going to be on the player side, at least not in the near future.
No.
Except for crafted abilities.
Like it may be something where you could take an alchemy and you distill your own venom into a much more potent form type of thing. That could be how you represent it. Or if you want the ability to just be something you use, kind of like your the blaster that you use with Nova, choosing an ability that fits it, like knockout or stun, something like that would do well. It's just kind of what you want it to be. Cool. What else, guys?
Is there sufficient space to maybe get one-on-one discussion with the GM team to get stuff sorted out? Especially
yeah.
things like the usage of civil service points, because I can't do that on the website yet, it turns out. And some of the stuff I want to do was, you said that I would have to talk to with a GM about in any case.
Right. So like creating a new character, having an upgraded background is one of the things that you can do with civil service. So yeah, it just has to be approved by a GM. So yeah, anybody want to jump into that chat? I'll put you in a breakout room here.
Thank you.
And one of us will jump in there within a couple of minutes. It might take us a few minutes if we have any other questions out here. But I will. One of us will jump in there in a moment. Anything else, guys?
Yeah, 417. Yeah, just my honest recommendation to pretty much everybody is go ahead and just make a character, because you have 2 events to just completely rewrite your character. If you discover like 2 attendances of events to completely rewrite your character to begin with.
Yeah, and
So-
there is a link on the website in the menu called Character Creation, which has a lot of great references and things to consider. So if you want to do some reading on it, you can do that. But beyond that, yeah, come up with an idea, create a character, submit it on the website, and then let us know.
Yep.
We'll approve it.
And if you discover after your like first event or so that you don't particularly care for your particular build or the story concept, yep, just approach us and we'll get everything rewritten and get you with a new character. Or the same character, just slightly different.
Anything else? How often do you guys meet when we are not on extra? That's a good question. So normal meeting conditions for us, we normally meet twice a month as an entire group. One of those is going to be a most of the day role play event, which we call game days. And then we also have social events. And social is going to be a meeting just like this, except we normally would do it in the library or something like that. And where we meet for the game events, we have been spending most of our games at Ritter Springs Park. We rent out the gazebo, go back there because there's a lot less Muggle traffic. And so we can just play more freely out there. And as for the socials, whenever we start doing those in person again, it'll probably be at the libraries. The 2 main libraries in town. Those are usually our go-tos.
But for what counts for the rewrites and stuff, it is specifically game events. You can once you attend 2 games, you still have the ability to rewrite a character. We typically have 2 camping events per year as well, so that are beefier than the ones that we do at Ritter Springs.
Yep. So Ritter Springs Park is one location, and then we have Library Station. What's the other library name?
Center.
Center.
Library Center. So North Kansas, South Gamble.
And ideally, what we've been trying to plan for is when we finally do kick up again, either one of the first things that we want to do is a big weekend camping event, because God, we want to get out of our houses for like an extended period of time. Just do this as much as we can.
Oh, I do want to bring up, there was another question. Matt, you posed this question on a post a couple weeks ago, and we hadn't answered it yet. I was just reminded of it, which thank you so much for the reminder. You asked about, is there a way, will there be a way to remove less desirable abilities other than CSS points or the civil service system? And as of right this moment, no. But I will say that in a future update that we are discussing, I have a proposal for a way to do it with spending money in game currency. So there might be, but we haven't discussed that at all yet. So as of right now, no. but there might be something in the future. So, yeah. Cool. Any other questions in chat or anything else? Or does anybody just want to say hi?
Hi.
All right. Well, if that's all of the game discussion that everybody has, oh, question: what are the participation fees for game day events, in-character events? They are $10, and for camping events, they're usually around 35. It depends on what our costs are for the camping, and whether or not you want a cot or you want space inside of a building, because we also try to let people do tent camping if they want to. So $10 for normal game day, and around 35 for camping events. But yeah. So I want to give a moment. Any other questions, comments, concerns? And if that's it, then we'll go ahead and we'll end the recording for YouTube. Okay, well, there it is, guys. This is our social for February 27th, 2021. Thank you guys so much for being here. We had a lot of participation this time. We rolled out a lot of things, and we still have more to come. We still have some major things that the GM team are discussing. Next time, the next social is not going to be so much about rollouts, because we won't have those things ready yet. We're going to do more of probably an interactive thing, maybe character building, something like that. So if you have ideas, shoot them our way. We'll be glad to discuss them. We just had a whole lot of stuff that we wanted to get out to you guys that we're all changing and updates, and hopefully it's good. Hopefully you guys like it. Feel free to send us your thoughts. And until next time, stay safe out there.
Good day.
Bye, everybody.